I have to say, I'm just really captivated by electric cars. There's something about that smooth, instant power.
Oh, yeah. What is it specifically that grabs you? The tech, the driving feel.
I think it's a bit of both. The tech is fascinating, obviously, but that acceleration, it's just fun. And it feels like, part of a cleaner way forward.
Absolutely. It's a massive shift happening right across the industry. It touches almost everything.
Right. And I know lots of you listening are keen to understand what's really going on without wading through tons of reports. You want the key insights quickly.
Makes sense. It's a fast-moving area.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've pulled together some really interesting pieces. We're looking at global sales trends, what's happening with battery production, the real engine room of EVs manufacturer strategies, and of course, charging.
A good mix.
Mm.
Covers the main bases.
Our mission, basically, is to connect these dots for you, to give you a clear picture of the EV market right now and where it seems to be heading. Consider it your kind of express update on all things EV. I'm really looking forward to digging in.
Me too. There's some fascinating things happening. Where should we kick off?
Okay, let's start with the big picture. Global sales.
Yeah.
The latest numbers we've got are for April 2025.
What are they showing? Still strong?
Yeah, pretty strong. 1.5 million registrations globally. That's BEVs and PHEVs combined.
Okay, 1.5 million in 1 month. And how does that compare?
It's up 29% compared to the same month last year. So, nearly a third higher.
29%. That's solid growth.
Okay.
Definitely shows the underlying trend is still very positive.
Right. And if we look at the year so far, January to April 2025, the regional breakdown is quite interesting.
Oh, yeah. How's it look?
Well, China is just powering ahead. 3.3 million units sold in those 4 months. That's up 35%.
Wow, 35% increase in China. That's huge volume and huge growth.
It really is. Then Europe, 1.2 million units, which is up 25%. Also very strong.
Okay, solid, consistent growth there.
North America is a bit different, 0.6 million units, but the growth is slower, like 5% year over year.
Only 5%. That's interesting. Quite a contrast to China and Europe. Any thoughts on why?
The sources don't explicitly say, but you could speculate maybe. Infrastructure, model availability, consumer habits, perhaps.
Could be a mix of factors, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the rest of the world?
That's actually the fastest growing chunk, proportionally. 0.5 million units, but up 37%. So high growth from a smaller base.
Right, so adoption is really spreading globally, even if the big volumes are still China and Europe.
Yeah.
Total for Jan-April is then?
Let's see. 3.3 plus 1.2 is 4.5, plus 0.6 is 5.1, plus 0.5. So 5.6 million globally in the first 4 months.
5.6 million is really scaling up.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, there was a slight dip mentioned from March to April globally.
Oh, but the year-over-year is still way up.
Exactly. The overall trend is still clearly upwards. And they point to specific drivers for this continued growth.
Like what?
New EU emissions policies seem to be a factor. And in China, apparently, there are incentives for replacing older vehicles.
Policy levers.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
can really move the needle, pushing manufacturers and pulling consumers.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Totally. And looking ahead, the International Energy Agency, the IEA, they're forecasting 20 million EV sales for the whole of 2025.
20 million for the full year. That's a big jump from where we are now.
It is a huge number, isn't it? They put it down to falling battery costs, which we know is key, and just more models becoming available.
Well, lower costs and more choice.
Yeah.
That's the recipe for wider adoption. 20 million sounds ambitious, but, maybe achievable given the momentum we're seeing.
Yeah, and we've got that quote from Fatih Birol at the IEA saying electric cars are on a solid trajectory of growth. Seems to back it up.
Okay, so the demand side looks strong, the sales are growing, but what about supplying the core component, the batteries?
Right. The absolute heart of the EV. And there's some big news there concerning CATL, the Chinese battery giant.
Ah, yes. CATL. They're a major player. What are they up to?
They're pushing ahead with their big gigafactory in Europe near Debrecen in Hungary. Construction and expansion are ongoing.
That's the one with the huge initial investment, right? Something like 3 billion euros?
Exactly, 3 billion euros to start, but now they're looking to raise even more money, up to 5 billion euros more.
5 billion more. Wow. How are they doing that?
Through the stock offering in Hong Kong, they're planning to offer something like 118 to 156 million shares.
Okay, so a massive capital raise. What's the thinking? Just meeting European demand.
Seems like it. The articles mention specifically meeting growing demand from European car makers, like Mercedes is named. They clearly see huge potential there and want to be right on the doorstep.
Makes sense to produce locally if the demand is there, reduce the logistics cost, potential tariff issues.
And there's another angle mentioned. It connects to the recent struggles of Northvolt.
Ah, Northvolt,
Yeah.
the European battery hopeful. They've had some challenges, haven't they?
Yeah. So the suggestion is that CATL's big expansion could be sort of perfectly timed to fill a potential gap in that made-in-EU battery supply.
Interesting timing. So while Europe wants local production, established players like CAPL might be better positioned to scale up quickly right now. It highlights the difficulty of building these massive supply chains from scratch.
Definitely. So, okay, battery production is scaling up, trying to keep pace. Let's shift to the car companies themselves. Any interesting strategies popping up?
Well, there's a potentially very significant move involving Toyota in China.
Toyota. They've been a bit more, let's say, cautious on pure EVs compared to some others. What are they doing?
They're reportedly looking into acquiring a Chinese EV startup called Neta Auto.
Neta Auto. Not a household name, maybe, but why would Toyota be interested? Especially if Neta's having issues.
Right, Net is facing financial difficulties. Reports mention something like 2.35 billion euros in debt.
Oof, that's serious. So what's the upside for Toyota?
Neta, despite the debt, has valuable assets in China. They have existing local supplier networks, they hold production licenses, and crucially, they understand the Chinese market. Things that would take Toyota time and, frankly, a lot of money to build themselves.
Ah, okay. So it's potentially a shortcut for Toyota to get a much stronger foothold in the massive and very competitive Chinese EV market.
Exactly. It could significantly accelerate their EV presence there. And for Neta,
Well, a huge influx of cash from Toyota would presumably be a lifeline, right? Help them sort out that debt.
precisely. It looks like it could be mutually beneficial. Toyota gets market access and local know-how. Neta gets financial stability and the backing of a global giant.
Makes sense. Do we know much about Neta? They've actually produced cars.
Yeah, they were founded back in 2014, developed a few EV models, so they have some tech capability. But recently, they've hit trouble. Production disruptions, layoffs, R&D center closures, even impacting their overseas efforts in places like Thailand.
So the need for a partner or investor seems pretty urgent for them. Shows how tough the EV startup game is.
It really does. Intense competition.
Okay, so we have battery makers expanding, established automakers making strategic plays. But what about keeping all these cars charged? Infrastructure is always the big question.
Absolutely critical. And on that front, there's an interesting move from Renault via their Mobilize subsidiary.
Mobilize, right. What are they up to?
They're acquiring a stake in an Italian company called Free2X.
Free to X. And who are they?
They're part of Autostrade per l'Italia, the big Italian highway operator. And Free2X runs a significant charging network along those highways.
Ah, interesting. So Renault is buying into highway charging infrastructure in Italy. How big is this network?
It's pretty substantial. Over 100 stations apparently set up, so there's a hub roughly every 50 kilometers.
Every 50 kilometers on the highway. That's quite dense coverage.
Yeah, and they mention high power chargers too, up to 400 kilowatts, which means faster charging. Plus, it's powered by 100% renewable energy.
Wow, okay. That sounds like a really solid network. So Renault sees value in owning a piece of that.
It seems so. The goal mentioned is facilitating the transition to EVs by making charging easier and more visible, especially expanding coverage beyond just the highways eventually.
Right, tackling that range anxiety and convenience factor head on. If charging is easy and plentiful, more people will consider switching.
Exactly. It shows Renault is thinking about the whole ecosystem, not just selling the cars.
Which feels like the smart play, doesn't it? Developing integrated systems, the vehicle, the energy, the data.
Absolutely. It's becoming clear that a holistic approach is needed. You can't just build the cars, you need the infrastructure and services to support them seamlessly. This investment fits right into that picture.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these different threads together. We've seen a really strong global sales growth, right? Driven by policy and demand.
Yep, significant growth overall, even with some regional variations.
Then we've got major battery players like CATL investing heavily in production, especially in key markets like Europe, maybe stepping in where others are struggling.
Right, shoring up that critical supply chain piece.
And manufacturers like Toyota are making strategic moves, perhaps acquiring startups like Neta to gain specific market access and know-how, particularly in China.
Adapting their strategies to the new landscape, yeah.
While others, like Renault, are investing directly in the charging infrastructure needed to actually support all these EVs on the road.
Building out that essential ecosystem, it really shows how interconnected it all is, doesn't it? Sales drive battery needs, which drives investment, while infrastructure enables more sales.
Exactly. It's not just one thing, it's this whole complex system moving forward. It feels like the global EV market is really hitting its stride, moving beyond the early adopter phase.
It certainly seems that way. The level of investment and strategic maneuvering from major players across the board, batteries, cars, charging points, to a real conviction that this transition is accelerating.
And the outlook for 2025 looks set for continued strong growth, which is bound to reshape the auto industry and push sustainable mobility policies further. So for you listening, the takeaway is that this shift is happening, and it's happening globally, driven by multiple factors, all working together.
It paints a picture of a rapidly maturing industry. Still challenges, of course, but the direction seems pretty clear.
It really is moving fast. You look at all these developments, and it's quite something. The key things for you to remember from this are that strong global sales growth, the critical role of battery production ramping up, manufacturers making big strategic bets, and that essential build-out of charging networks. It's definitely an exciting space to watch.
And thinking longer term, it really raises a big question, doesn't it? As we see potentially 20 million EVs sold this year, and more beyond, what does that mean for our energy grids?
Yeah.
How do our cities and power systems actually cope with that increased demand and the need for charging everywhere?
That's a huge challenge, yeah. Adapting the grid, urban planning, it goes way beyond just the cars. Definitely food for thought.
It certainly is. A transformation with wide ripples.
Well, that's a great point to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the electric vehicle world today.
My pleasure. Always fascinating to track these changes.
If you found this exploration insightful and want to stay updated on future deep dives, remember to like,